And also the nice thing about these broadening patterns is they tell us exactly where the price target is likely to go. So the beginning of this price pattern takes us neatly to about the $100 price level. What you're about to see is a video snippet from inside the boiler room. Every single morning before the open of the US stock markets, I analyze dozens of stocks and then decide on the trades that we're going to look at for that day with dozens of traders. We all get together, execute trades, chat some, and make some money together on a Zoom conference call. Go to thepatterntrader.com/club to find out more. This is the S&P, and we kind of have this, huge V-shaped. You have a V shape, you had all this, resistance line going up, and then you have this perfect resistance line going down. And again, you can see how unbelievably well, these targets kick in, where every single time on the dime, on the penny, the thing stopped and held within this downtrend line. And so, if we get another kickback up to 4,000, be very mindful. You can always sneak out and what have you, but I do think that there are certain, things that need to be fulfilled on this S&P chart. It just feels like we need to kind of go to the lower 3,000s. To me, looks like where we need to go on the S&P. I just have a hard time thinking what is going to be the catalyst now. Higher interest rates have been anticipated, whatnot. So I think it's just going to be if earnings start stalling and going in reverse, there's going to be some catalyst. But again, the whys are never important. The whys are the last thing that you want to consider in trading. To me, it's where, when, and how much do I have to risk? So you can see that, this is the last 3 weeks or so. We've been locked in a very tight coil between 3,700 and what have you. And so the more something coils, usually there's a release one way or another, and everyone's expecting this thing to go down. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing have another shot back to 4,000 before it rolls. But again, it's just a very difficult, dangerous market. It's all bunched up. And everybody's kind of, on one side. And so, again, I have some trepidation just going into the first part of this year, how to play it, what to play, how hard to play. And the market will always give you that, that opportunity. It will always size it up for you. But this is broadly what we're looking at in the S&P, these bands between here and here. This is Apple, the weekly chart of Apple. We've been watching Apple, and I talked a lot about this last year to watch for this 135 trigger area. This was the long-term trend line of this chart. And if you kind of draw it this way, we now have an ascending broadening triangle. We were watching this for a good part of last year. Ascending broadening triangle is a pattern that goes higher throughout the pattern. It starts out narrow and then widens or broadens out at the top. So it's called an ascending broadening price pattern. And this is typically a bear price pattern, meaning that once this thing is triggered, it then signifies that we're going to go on a ride the other way. And also the nice thing about these broadening patterns is they tell us exactly where the price target is likely to go, at least the first threshold. So the beginning of this price pattern takes us neatly to about the $100 price level. And I do think based on the trajectory and what this thing looks like in the big picture, that this is a pretty attainable target. There's kind of a secondary target in my mind, which is this 2020 high, of 80. So, I think somewhere between, 80 and 100 is probably a good target where Apple will fall to. And so I think, that's going to be the theme of this year, is taking advantage of the markets that are going to go lower through puts or inverse ETFs or what have you, and then look for, certain opportunities, in the second, third quarter where if Apple falls far enough to $70 or something like that, you can start buying this for your long-term wealth program. So that's kind of how I'm looking at things, kind of being opportunistic, taking advantage of whatever it's going to give me. And then if, these things like Amazon and Apple start plummeting to ridiculous levels, start just nibbling for a buy and hold strategy. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about things. Now, we just got to take one step at a time, one day at a time, 1 week at a time, and, just, do what we can. So in addition to this ascending broadening pattern, to me, Apple has also traced out a massive double top. And so, this is just a distribution. This is what Tesla looked like. And we'll take a look at Tesla. For 2 years, I was saying Tesla is over. And, Tesla plummeted 70% by the end of last year. I'm looking at Moderna. We talked a lot about Moderna last year. And again, sometimes you just have to wait for your opportunity, wait for the market to start telling you when it looks like the right kind of time. So again, when we look at Moderna, just like Tesla, to me, the big picture tells me a story. And, that is a top. Now, sometimes, prices can, rally all the way up here, and still do that. So, we have to kind of wait for prices to tell us when, it's going to end. So you can see at this area, there's an area here where there's just a lot of distribution. This, 190, 180 to 200, for, all this thing is, there's a lot of, every time this is where all the major selling comes through. And you can see we had one more spike. It looked like a bear trap, or a bull trap rather, where the bulls, anybody who bought above this thing is now trapped. And, traps, when they're sprung, they go the other way very quickly. And so I do think that Moderna looks like it's done. And so we have really a kind of a coil here where we have 3 weeks of price action, all sitting within the high and low of 3 weeks ago. So we have this kind of coil where the way I look at it is that the market had a run up. And then, I look at, okay, what happened after, it made its high here? Well, it couldn't make another high. And then the next week, it couldn't make another high. And this week, it certainly doesn't look like it's going to re-challenge those highs. So you had this kind of, one of those planes at those air shows go straight up in the air and it started to stall out and, go the other way. So, to me, you could start nibbling at Moderna. And the way I look at these things is that I get in and I don't put a stop loss. My attitude is if it goes higher, I'm just going to keep selling into this thing. And that's how you kind of build a position. So you can see that Moderna has also built this kind of ascending, broadening price pattern. And if this is correct, it's going to come all the way back to the bottom. So this is what I'm talking, just finding areas where you can start making, a play. Now, this may take a little while to mature, but I do believe, just like Tesla, when we see patterns, the pattern equals the trajectory. So I don't know how this is going to play out. Is it going to come back here? Is it going to futz around here? It may need a little bit more time. It probably will. So you can see that you've got all of this kind of action here. You may have to have something like that mimics this. And then eventually this is going to look like a head and shoulders. You kind of had the situation here, and then sometimes you don't even get a shoulder. It just dies. And so this, looks a lot like this over here. And so yesterday you had a key reversal. So, you're going to open slightly higher today. Maybe you start selling into that. I'm actually short the cousin of Moderna, BNTX. But let me just stay with this for a while. So, to me, the pattern's been put in, the weekly charts look bad. This thing looks like the beginning of, we can anticipate a double top and then, some kind of head and shoulders. Whenever I kind of get short, I kind of then look at, what is the trajectory? And this is very muddled because, let's say you get short, you got to kind of get through all of this kind of history here. So this just tells me that it may need a little bit more time just to mature. But my mindset now is that, if this thing starts going higher, I'm actually just going to start legging into it. It's a bit of a risky thing, to kind of short something like that because it could just keep going higher. But my whole thing, when I look at the weekly, the daily, the whatever, is that, I think certainly around this area, if we get back into 187 again, I'm just going to start building a position. And so there's different ways to play markets. You play markets when you see the momentum, and then sometimes, the markets just take a while and then they just get going without you having to have a perfect spot. So what I like to do is kind of feel like I see, a certain opportunity. And then, I want to build positions. I think gold could be that kind of situation where incrementally, we just need to start building positions in golds on pullbacks. So, conversely, if this thing rallies, I look at that as an opportunity. Hey, if you would like to trade alongside me every day and join our most prestigious program, then head over to thepatterntrader.com/club for more information.